The first time I heard my own name crackle out of a police radio transmission that had been recorded decades before I was born, I didn't just freeze. I panicked so hard I almost drove my car into a concrete divider. I was sitting in my driveway, engine idling, headphones on, listening to a digitized highway patrol tape from the early 70s, when the static suddenly tightened, like someone turning a dial, and a voice that wasn't quite a voice whispered my name, slowly, carefully, like it was tasting it. I didn't start this trying to prove ghosts exist. I didn't even believe in them. I was just a sound engineer, the kind people hire when old audio is too damaged for anyone else to make sense of. I clean up emergency calls, surveillance tapes, cassette recordings dug out of basements, anything where meaning is buried under decades of hiss. Most of the time it's depressing but harmless. This time was different from the very first file. The job came from a retired highway patrol officer named Frank, who found me through a podcast credit. He emailed me late one night with a vague message about radio intercepts that were never meant to be heard again. He said the department was finally digitizing everything before the analog tapes degraded completely, and there was a batch nobody wanted to touch. Recordings from patrol cars that caught transmissions not meant for them, bleed-through, crosstalk, static anomalies, calls that didn't fit reports, calls that scared officers enough to make them stop talking about it. Frank mailed me 3 boxes of reel-to-reel tapes wrapped in yellowing evidence paper. Some were labeled, most weren't. The earliest date I saw was 1969. The latest was 2007. That alone didn't bother me. Old agencies archive weird stuff all the time. But the note inside the box did. It was handwritten, shaky, and only said, "If you hear footsteps, stop listening." The first few nights were routine. I set up my workstation, poured too much coffee, and started digitizing. Most of it was normal patrol chatter. Speed traps, broken down cars, drunks asleep at rest stops, long stretches of silence broken by wind rushing past an open mic. But every so often, there was something underneath the transmission. Not noise exactly, more like pressure. A low pulsing hum that didn't match engine vibration or weather interference. It sounded closer, intentional. I started tagging those sections just to keep track. I called the folder Phantom, half joking, because I needed humor to keep myself sane at 3 in the morning. That joke stopped being funny fast. The first clip that really stuck with me came from August 1971. A trooper reports a sedan stopped on a desolate stretch of highway cutting through open desert. Headlights on, driver's door wide open, engine still warm. Dispatch asks the usual questions. Is anyone injured? Is anyone nearby? There's a long pause, just wind and static. Then the trooper says, very quietly, "There's only one set of footprints, and they don't go anywhere." Dispatch asks him to repeat himself. He doesn't. The transmission ends with a sharp burst of static that nearly blew my speakers. At first, I assumed exaggeration, nerves, or bad recording. But then I heard it again and again. Same scenario, different decades, different states. Cars abandoned like the driver evaporated mid-motion. Radio still playing. Coffee still warm in cup holders. Officers reporting the same feeling, like they were being watched from just beyond the headlights. And always, buried deep in the static, there was something else. Breathing, slow, rhythmic, too close to the microphone to be environmental. After a week, I started dreaming about highways. Endless black tops stretching forward forever, lane markers sliding under me like teeth. I'd wake up with my ears ringing, convinced I'd left my radio on. Sometimes I'd hear engines outside my apartment at 4 a.m. and feel this irrational fear that if I looked out the window, I'd see someone standing in the street, waiting. One night, while cleaning a particularly damaged tape from 1984, I isolated a frequency spike and boosted it out of curiosity. The static thinned, the hum sharpened, and a voice came through, distorted but unmistakable, saying, "Don't stop." I actually laughed at first, a nervous laugh. The human brain is great at inventing patterns, especially when you're tired. I told myself that a dozen times, but then I realized the voice wasn't part of the original call. It was layered on top of it, like it had piggybacked onto the transmission. That's when I stopped treating this like a job, started treating it like a problem. I began mapping the incidents. Dates, locations, time of night. Patterns emerged almost immediately. The appearances clustered around long, isolated stretches of highway, places where you can drive for an hour without seeing another car. They followed traffic reroutes during construction years. They spiked during holiday travel seasons. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't random, and it was learning. Early reports described a vague figure standing on the shoulder, pale, hard to focus on. Officers complained their eyes wouldn't settle on it, like trying to look at heat distortion. Later calls talked about movement, the figure pacing vehicles, matching speed no matter how fast the driver went. One trooper in the early 90s radioed in laughing nervously, saying, "It's keeping up with me like it's jogging." His laughter stopped mid-sentence. By the late 90s, the descriptions got worse. Officers reported seeing someone sitting inside abandoned cars, hands folded in their lap, head tilted like they were listening to something only they could hear. I should have walked away. Anyone sane would have. But the deeper I went, the more it started to feel personal. The interference began reacting to my work. When I paused playback, the static sometimes lingered for a second too long. When I rewound, I'd hear faint echoes that hadn't been there before. Once, while exporting the cleaned file, my computer speakers crackled to life even though they were muted. Then came the call from 1963, the one that wasn't supposed to exist. It was labeled training exercise, but nothing about it sounded staged. Two officers, one clearly young, are dispatched to investigate a man standing in the road. The senior officer tells the rookie not to make eye contact, says it casually, like it's common knowledge. The rookie laughs it off, calls him paranoid. Then there's silence, heavy breathing. The rookie's voice comes back, strange, saying, "Why isn't he moving?" The senior officer shouts something I can't quite make out, and then the rookie screams, not from pain, but from realization. Through the static, something laughs back, slow, satisfied. That laughter didn't sound like tape damage. It sounded close. About halfway through this nightmare, I need to ask you something honestly. If you were sitting where I was, hearing decades of voices slowly revealing something impossible that shouldn't exist, would you keep digging, or would you shut it all down and pretend the highways are just highways? I kept digging. The newer tapes were the worst. By the 2000s, officers were reporting hearing their own voices echo back through the radio, delayed and warped. Some thought it was prank interference. Others went silent. One trooper whispered, "It knows my name," and never checked back in. His patrol car was found idling on the shoulder 2 hours later, door open, no footprints. The final recordings weren't screams or crashes, they were conversations. The phantom responding, mimicking speech, learning speech patterns, using pauses, using fear. It wasn't haunting the road anymore. It was using the road like a bloodstream. The last tape I cleaned before delivering the archive was dated just 3 years ago. An officer calls in for interference. Dispatch doesn't hear anything unusual. The officer says, "It's telling me to pull over." Dispatch asks, "Who?" The officer pauses, then says calmly, "You know who." The call ends with static, and underneath it, breathing that sounds almost content. A month ago, I drove cross-country to deliver the finished archive to a university research lab. Somewhere in New Mexico, long after midnight, my radio lost signal. One by one, stations faded into static, familiar static. My phone showed no service. Then a voice came through the speakers, low and close, saying, "Don't stop." My phone rang, unknown number. I answered without thinking. All I heard was my own breathing, delayed just enough to make my skin crawl. In the rearview mirror, for half a second, I saw someone sitting behind me, pale, smiling, patient. I didn't stop. I drove until sunrise. When I finally pulled into a gas station, shaken and exhausted, my trunk was open. The hard drives were gone. Tire tracks led back toward the highway. I still hear the static sometimes when traffic thins at night. I think the phantom wanted its story back, or maybe it wanted me to understand